Hello, and welcome to my channel. If you've been here before, welcome back. My name is Alfonso Peluso, and I'm a Studio Associate Professor in the College of Architecture at IIT, the home of the legendary Mies van der Rohe. I'm also adjunct faculty at Columbia College Chicago in the Interior Architecture program, and shout out to the Gray House, Mook, one of my former students at Columbia College. How are you? She's given a like on my latest video. I hope all is well. Alright, today we're going to look at Rhino, the sweep. The sweep, I would say, is up there. It's one of the most used commands in Rhino. It's up there with the loft. If you saw my latest video on the loft, I'd say that's the most used, and then sweep. Sweep coming in a near second. And today we're going to look at sweep 1 and sweep 2. A couple of bonus items here. We have the slash, we have the edge surface. Look at some line weights, some ISO curves, and then, how do you get this out of the computer? How do you print it? Alright, so here you have something that we're going to end up with here, and this is actually a version of a bench, like a parametric bench. Alright, before we jump into the tutorial, if you haven't subscribed to my YouTube channel, go ahead and find me on YouTube and go ahead and subscribe to my channel. Also, connect with me on Instagram. If you haven't connected with me on Instagram, please go ahead and do so. You can connect with me at my first name, Alfonso underscore my last name, Peluso. All right, let's get into the tutorial. So, all right, shout out to Roma student. If we type in architecture in Google, and this is something I've been doing for this series of videos. So this series of videos started with printing a custom page PDF, working with extrusions, working with loft, now sweep. After the sweep one, I'm going to do a video on revolve. But I've been typing in architecture in Google, which is something I haven't done before, and I was pleasantly surprised at the complexity of the architecture that shows up when you type in architecture, not only from Frank Gehry back to Brunelleschi in the Renaissance. You have some brutalist forms here, Zaha Hadid, but there's some complexity in it. I didn't think I would see so much complexity when I just typed in the Google search architecture, but I do, so I'm pretty excited about that. I also wanted to look at interior architecture because when I think of sweep, I think of a lot of wall surfaces or maybe a desk surface or a ceiling surface. So I guess, there's potential for sweep in, with the actual building, but I see more potential for sweep with the interior building elements. And I'm seeing a lot of that here. You see this really great desk. I remember showing this project to my interior architecture students a while back. And it's not just a desk, but it's a desk that becomes a ceiling that defines space, and it looks like it goes back to maybe a library in the back. So I thought that was very, very cool. Something you could make from a sweep. So there's also these ceiling elements here. So, sweep is an alternative to loft, and there's some, pros and cons to using one over the other, but they do similar things. I guess someone that I always think about when I'm working with students and talking about sweep, I think about the artist Richard Serra, because I think of these really great steel forms that he used to make. And if he was modeling these in Rhino, he would definitely be using the sweep. This one you would need to know the sweep 2 command. So I think of Richard Serra. All right, let's jump into this. So I'm going to start a new file here. And I'm just working in small objects inches. Alright, let me set up my grid size so I have some sort of scale to work in. So I'm just working small scale. I'm thinking of working in about 10-inch space, so some scale models. Okay, let's just get some grid lines going here. Not super important. Okay. So every grid line for me is an inch. These big grids are 5 inches a piece. So this is 5, 10 in this direction and 5, 10 in that direction. So 10 by 10 area that I'm working in. All right, let's look at a sweep one. So I'm gonna want to set up a layer. I like to put my curves and surfaces on different layers. So I'm making a layer CRV, making that current. And I'm going to draw an interpolated curve, so an interp curve. I'm going to put my grid snap on, and what interp curve means is where I snap is where that point actually sits. So it's not a control point that I'm snapping. It's not falling outside of the curve, it's falling on the curve. So that's interp curve. I'm just going to draw, how about a sine curve? Alright. So we have that curve there. And what I'm going to do now, when I'm talking about sweep, so let's define sweep. I have a definition here. So what is a sweep? A sweep 1 is an extrusion of a curve, also called a section. So it's an extrusion of the section along a path, also called a rail. So shout out to Maya Anise. Okay, so what does this mean? So Rhino is using the term section and rail. Okay, so a sweep 1 is an extrusion of a section along a path. Okay, or a sweep of a section curve along a path or a rail. All right, so let's look at that. So what I've drawn right now, this is what I'm defining as my rail. This is my rail. So now I need the section to follow that or extrude along that rail. So I'm going to, just to start with, I'm going to draw a line and I'm going to make that a vertical line. Okay. And the reason I'm doing this is because I'm showing you really how not to use the sweep, because this just becomes an extrusion. So let's go a little bit further into this. So let's look at sweep. We're going to make a sweep 1. And it's important to really look at what is Rhino asking. So it's asking me to select the rail. So the rail, I like my rails to be my horizontal curves. Okay, so my rail is this horizontal curve, and then it says select cross section. I like my cross sections to be my vertical curves. So I'm going to select that cross section, press enter. Let's look at this in a rendered view. So starting to see that. Okay. We'll be switching back from rendered to shaded and so forth. Okay, so not many options here for the sweep 1 rail that are really helpful. Most of it is grayed out, but what we can do, if you watched my loft video, you'll see that sometimes it helps to rebuild. Okay, so when I did that rebuild, okay, there's no horizontal ISO curves at the moment, but when I rebuild it, 50 isn't the default, but now I have 50 of those. In this form, it's really not that important at all, because really all this is, if I cancel this, all that was an extrusion. So if I extrude that curve, okay, that's all that was. So there was really no reason to do a sweep. I could have just extruded it, drawn one curve and extruded it. Okay, so that's worth looking at. Now if I take this curve, which just has 2 points right now, it has a point at the bottom and a point at the top. If I rebuild that curve, if I rebuild it, and I'm just using, I don't know what the default is, I think it's just remembering what I've put in before. So 4 points and then a degree of 3. Degree of 3 just makes it a curve that can be bendable. Okay. Alright, so now you see when I select it, it has 1, 2, 3, 4 points on it. Let me select these and let me just add some bending into it. Okay, maybe not that much. Okay. Alright, shout out to, I'm not going to even attempt to butcher your name, but shout out to you for liking the video, my latest video that I posted on Instagram. Alright. Okay, So here we are. We have these two curves. The bottom one is the rail. The side one is the section. Alright, let's go ahead and use our sweep command on these two. So we're just going to do in this case, we're just going to do a sweep 1. Okay, so let's type in sweep and then 1. Okay, and it wants the rail. The rail is the bottom, or the horizontal, and then it says select cross section curve, and that's going to be the vertical. All right, so there you see. Now that's very different than an extrusion, and let's look a little deeper into it. Okay, so we can do the same thing we looked at before. Most of this is grayed out, just freeform is here. Um, you know, it's with some of these, it's just kind of clicking on these, like refit the rail doesn't really, I don't see that really helping me too much. Rebuild cross sections, you can get sometimes some more definition in that when you're rebuilding it. So I'm just going to go ahead and let that be rebuilt. Okay, I'm going to make a surface layer to put these on. And I'm going to hide that surface layer. Okay, so that was a sweep 1. It was one rail and one section. One rail curve and one section curve. Okay, so I'm going to add a second rail to this. So I'm going to take that first rail and I'm going to copy it. Okay. So leaving it like that doesn't really help me. That's just going to be, because these two rails are the same, it's just going to give me the same form as a sweep 1. Shout out to Anna AD9. Thanks for liking the video. Okay. All right. So let's so what do I need to do to make this different than a sweep 1? I need to manipulate this top curve. So I selected this top curve, has some control points. I'm gonna manipulate it, make it a little less curvature to it. Okay. All right. So let's look at that. All right. One of my former students. He's got a different Instagram names. Shout out to Reva Camera. I'm probably butchering that one too. Revi Camera. How's it going, man? All right. All right. So let's see this here. Let's do a sweep 2. So sweep 2, select the first rail. That's this rail. Oh, Zeeb Zob. Shout out to one of my good friends from Wisconsin, McQuantico, Wisconsin. The Zeeb Zob. How's it going, buddy? All right, so those are the two rails and then the section curve, and I'll do this one more time because I was getting distracted there for a moment, having some good fun. All right, so let's look at this again. All right, so what this is allowing me to do, it's allowing me to define the shape of the bottom edge, the shape of the top edge, and the shape of the side. So it's taking this section curve and it's following the two rails, the bottom rail and the top rail. So I'm going to type in sweep 2, select the first rail, select the second rail, and then select the cross section curve. Okay, I'm going to take out the rebuild. Okay, so you can see some of these different options that we have here. Okay, so just kind of clicking through and getting a sense of these. Everything else is grayed out down here, so I'm not allowed to do anything there. Alright, so that's my sweep 2. Alright. Zeebzob, I already shout out to you. You're back. Alright, so I'm going to take this one here, And I'm going to copy this one over. Alright, so something else that I can do. Actually, what I'm going to do is I want to make this edge over here. I'm going to go ahead and make that. So I'm going to type in line, and I'm going to draw a line between those. Shout out to Hamid Zoab. How's it going, man? Alright, so I'm going to rebuild that curve, and I'm going to move some of those points. So now what I have is I have all the edges. I have all the edges of my surface. So I can use a sweep, or I can use a command called an edge surface, and that was one of the bonuses that I want to look at. So I want to look at slash, which we haven't looked at, and not slash from Guns N' Roses. Now I'm dating myself. That's for the Zeebzob. So not slash from Guns N' Roses, but we'll look at slash, and then we're also looking at edge surface. So I want to take a look at that. All right, shout out to Midwest Bearing. All right. All right, Zeebzob. We got it. All right, so edge surf. Let's look at edge surf. Let's type in the command edge surf. Okay. And what it's asking me is select 2, 3, or 4 open curves. All right, so I have 4 open curves in this case. So I have this one, 1, 2, 3, 4, and it will also make it. So if you have the 4 curves, edge surf is I'd say better, a little easier, except you don't have any control. You can't rebuild it within the dialog box, but I can always rebuild. I can always select a surface and type in rebuild, and I can go to town here. So I think that that's a pretty cool way. And look at that surface, looks really good. That surface looks really uniform. Those rectangles, those UV ISO curves look really good on that surface. So you can always rebuild it. So edge surf, if you're looking for some other way to do it and you can have all of your edges, you can use edge surf. Alright, so something else that I wanted to look at is I did a Google search for Parametric Bench, because I know these benches have been around a long time, where people are using Rhino, either using Sweep, they're using Loft, and then they're making sections. They're making vertical sections through the bench, and then they're CNCing these layered elements in plywood. And actually, I had some students do this not too long ago, where they made this blob, what we called le blob, and this le blob. There we go.
Baroque. Baroque was the semester's conceptual design theme. Through a geometrical analysis, we obtained 6 patterns of the most representative churches. Placed one on top of another, molds the interior, creating a cathedral-like shape that reproduces the sensation of looking towards the domes of the Baroque churches. Secondary holes are opened, creating an indoor-outdoor connection, acting as site frameworks.
So there you see the
Visitors
sections.
encounter the need to pry inside through a hole located between the 3 backings. Construction: 1 CNC router, plus 42 plywood sheets, plus 18 students, equal to 178 pieces strategically placed by an algorithm that maximizes the use of material. The distance between the plywood layers and its designs generates a see-through structure that bears traces of the fabrication process. Heads, but not bodies, enter the surprising enclosure where visitors experience the dislocation of being in 2 spaces at the same time.
So that's an example of something like this parametric bench, and my students actually did build that, and this is
Hi, it's Sam Barker.
I can
Here from
skip
the
this ad here.
Behind me is landmark.
Hi, Sam.
Or what cut into flat horizontal contours, which define
So if we go toward the
layers, slide onto the studs with 2 3/4-inch spacers inserted between each layer to provide porosity.
and we went with the Pepto-Bismol pink for the color.
part of the installation itself.
So that's the actual form built. Alright, so you get the idea. Alright, shout out, I'm not sure, Zana Wazid. Shout out to you, buddy. Okay. Alright, so getting back to the bench. Alright, so I have put that on the surface layer. I have some curves that I'm gonna just paste into here. So I'm gonna hide these. Alright, so here's some curves. Look at that, making a little parametric bench. So I've added in these little um, sections that follow a bench profile. So let's take a look at doing this. So let's do a sweep 1. Okay, so this might help us decide when to make a sweep 1 or when to make a sweep 2. So with the sweep 1, it's asking me to select the rail. So I'm going to select the bottom rail and select the cross section. I'm going to select the side curve. So I'm very limited with the sweep 1. I can select one rail. That's this bottom horizontal curve, and I can select one section. That's the vertical curve. Okay, so and this is what I end up with. Not exactly what I'm looking for. I just not enough information there for Rhino to figure that one out. Okay, so let's do a sweep 2. It says select first rail, select second rail. So first rail is bottom edge, second rail is top edge. Select cross section curve. So I can select as many cross section curves as I need. So that's something really important with sweep 2. I don't know if I made that point yet, but I'm making it now. So sweep 2, you get 2 rails, top and bottom, 2 edges, top and bottom, but you get as many sections as you need. So I probably need more than 3 sections to really make this look good. Okay, so let's just take a look at this. Now, something else in the bonus was something called slash. So we talked about slash a little bit. All right, so these lines that you see here that are not quite vertical, I can click on add slash and I can pick points on the rails to make straight lines, and you see what it does there. It straightens those lines out. Okay, so you could find this helpful. So that's what the slash is. Okay, let's see what this looks like. Alright, so it's a little, some of you might find this a little strange, like a crumpled piece of paper there with the bench. But maybe what I could do is I can try it with, I could try it in the other direction. Okay, so I was making my sections I was using these vertical sections. What if I go the other way and I use my sections as my horizontal? I have 1, 2, 3, 4 horizontal, and I have 2. I could make these 2 rails. So I could do a sweep 2 just in the other direction, just worth looking at. Okay, so first rail is going to be left, second rail is going to be right, and then select cross section curves, and I can do as many as I need to. Okay, that looks pretty good. Okay, so there we have that. And this one is just giving you something more flat that you could sit on, and I like this. I like this bottom edge a lot, and this one. Okay, we're almost done here. So we've looked at these bonuses, slash and edge surf, line weights, extract ISO curves, print the PDF and raster output. So if I want some line weight to this thing, I want some definition to it. Okay, let's my curves. I'm gonna make my print color black. I'm gonna kick up the line weight. Okay, so it's still reading as red. The curves are still all red. They don't have any line weight to them. But if I type in the command print display, change my state to on, and then okay, so now those are black lines. They have a thickness to them, and if you'll see, I can change that thickness. and you can see I can change that thickness and it will update. Okay, so now if I wanted some lines, some isocurve lines, like more lines to show the curvature of this, I can use the command extract isocurve. Extract isocurve. Select the surface I want to extract from. It has the direction, whether it's the V or the U. So here's some V. I'm just moving my cursor. Let me turn off the grid snaps or any snaps. I'm just moving my cursor. It's interesting, it's not letting me go any further down in this area. Haven't encountered that yet. Maybe someone in the comments will figure that one out and let me know what's happening with this particular one. Okay, now I can toggle in the U. It's probably because it's in the rendered view. That's probably what someone's already telling me, is that, hey, you're in the rendered view. There's a bolt there. That's pretty cool. All right, let me try this again. Let me change this to be not rendered but shaded. Okay, so let's do extract isocurve. Shout out to Form Space, another former student from IIT. How's it going, man? All right, select surface for isocurve extraction. All right. This one's giving me a little trouble. Yeah, this one breaks it at the bench. Let's take a look at doing another one just to show this off. Okay, so here's one of our original, some of our original lines here. Let's do an edge surf. Okay, and let's do an extract isocurve. Okay, so these are my U direction, so those are along the vertical. And then I can do that again, and I can toggle that in my V direction. Alright, and then if I was to print this, I'm going to use Control P. I know you guys think I'm crazy. I've been using this 4x10 output. I've been telling my students that when you submit your portfolio, if you submit 8.5 by 11 or 11 by 17, everybody's going to do that. So you should submit a portfolio that's a unique size. So I don't know that 4x10 is the greatest, but it'll stand out. Someone's going to look at that amongst the sea of 8.5 by 11 and 11 by 17s, and the 4x10 is going to stand out. All right, so Control P. So this has to be raster output because I have shade and shadow in there. I'll put a link at the end of this video to setting up a custom paper size. I set up a custom 4x10, so you'll see that link at the end of this. Okay, Pedro, another former student of mine. Shout out to Pedro. All right. All right, so I think that's it for today. All right, shout out to Rishi. Rishi, another student of mine from IIT. Shout out to Rishi. All right, so this is sweep. All right, so thanks for tuning in. If you found this video helpful, give me a like down below. Leave me a comment why you found it helpful. My head's going to pop up. Click on my head to subscribe to my channel. Click on the making custom print size in Adobe PDF, and also to this playlist. This Back to the Basics playlist is going to pop up so you can learn about all the Rhino Back to Basics. All right, thanks again for tuning in, and I'll see you on the next one.